You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast from the Film Magazine where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, and just whatever else gets us going. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who is going to avoid doing his bad impersonation of Humphrey Bogart.
And I'm Sam. I'm the one who doesn't do as good an impression of a hippo as Bogart did.
Oh my gosh, that was an incredible impression. Yeah, we're doing Humphrey Bogart because coming out tomorrow, at least in the U.S., I don't know about for the U.K., this is the first official documentary backed by his estate, Bogart, Life Comes in Flashes, and it will apparently have like narration from him. It'll have like archive footage, behind the scenes stuff. It sounds really interesting.
It does, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's his son has kind of thrown his full weight behind it, and I think the theory is that it's just kind of getting behind the star persona. It's like his dad was more than just a tough guy and leading man, kind of romantic leading man on the screen. So I'm sure it'll be worth a watch.
Yeah, and I know I'm a lot more motivated to watch it after seeing this. I didn't know much about him off camera. I've seen a few of his movies before, but when I think of him, I sort of ironically think of the scene in Breathless where he's impersonating him.
All this kind of rubbing your lip like that,
having a cigarette wagging out of your mouth at all moments.
Yeah. I mean, he was voted, I think, by the AFI as like the most iconic kind of male star of like the classic Hollywood era, and I think you struggle to argue against that. Really, it's he's one of those first faces you think of when I think of these classic, usually black and white movies. That've kind of stood the test of time.
Yeah, it was kind of him and Clark Gable, Jimmy Stewart,
Grant,
George Raft, who kept passing on these roles that he took.
Yeah, which it wasn't bitter about at all. That his career mostly amounts to the studio's first choice is kind of turning these roles down.
Yeah, but I didn't know this. He was born on Christmas Day in 1899, and then he
was called like Mr. 19th century, wasn't he? Because he was technically born in the previous century. I think he was the only star I think born in the previous century to win an Oscar, which is a nice little kind of bit of trivia.
That is it. I did not know that. He served in the Navy during World War I for the U.S., but just kind of, the U.S. came in at the end, obviously, so he was just kind of there at the end, but surely he would take some of that experience into the African Queen. Then he also kind of toured around during World War II. He went to a few spots in Europe and was like, "I'm Humphrey Bogart. What's up, guys? Hope you're doing well."
Yeah. I mean, they had a lot of kind of Hollywood kind of talent doing similar things, didn't they? Doing these like road shows, to keep the troops entertained. And he wasn't like. I suppose he kind of struggled to an extent, to properly break through into like the acting profession. He had some time on Broadway, and then kind of got kind of small roles. I mean, it kind of in a lot of ways reminds me of the very different kinds of performers and different backgrounds. It reminds me a lot of someone like Boris Karloff. It's almost he was just years and years of just being these thankless like supporting background roles, and then all of a sudden you get a couple of quite prominent kind of screen appearances back to back, and all of a sudden you're one of the biggest stars in the world.
Yeah. Then he actually transitioned from stage to screen within the same work, which you watch. The story I read was he showed up to read for stage, and he was hungover, bleary-eyed. It's just really fit what they wanted.
Yeah. The Petrified Forest is, and if you see the film, it is very stagey. It's very obviously, directly adapted from a stage play. It's more or less a one location kind of deal. It's just in this diner in the middle of nowhere that's held up by a load of gangsters on the run, and Bogart's like the leader of these gangsters, and he basically spends the whole film just sitting around threatening people and looking sinister, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he credits Leslie Howard, as the lead in that film, for giving him his break, for recommending him for the role, and I think to the extent that I think he named one of his kids
his
Leslie
his daughter
after him.
named
Yeah,
her
yeah,
Leslie Howard Bogart.
yeah. Leslie spelt the male way, interestingly. So
Wait, what's the female way?
Ley rather than Lie.
Oh, I've never known a
Usually,
Leslie spelled that way, either gender.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Um, Also, something that the book, gosh, the essential Humphrey Bogart. It talked about how his dad was a doctor and he was kind of
yeah,
upper class, and then his dad got addicted to morphine and got in debt. And during this period where he's struggling as an actor and even into his Hollywood years, he's supporting his family, essentially, his mom and his
yeah,
sisters, one of whom
yeah,
was
yeah.
in a loony bin.
Yeah. I read somewhere it's like saying, when his dad was struggling to keep like the kind of his practice afloat. He made like some bad investments or something like in lumber mills or something along those lines. I think, just the industry didn't go the way he planned, and he lost a lot of money doing that. So yeah, I think they had the best time of it. Immediately prior to him starting his career in acting.
And so naturally, in his spare time, obviously he's a very dedicated performer. He loved to smoke and drink. And you know what? At work, he smoked a lot too, um,
Yeah,
as we see in the movies. But that would ultimately be his downfall. And I didn't know
yeah.
he had died in 1957 of esophageal cancer. Um, but before that, he broke in with Petrified Forest, but
Yeah.
um, Sam, where did his career go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's in like his early kind of screen career, he apparently played a gangster in 28 films between 1936 and 1941. So to say he was kind of typecast is by no means like an understatement.
And
I
for
think it's
Warner Brothers, that he was on
yeah,
contract to just
yeah,
you're our heavy.
yeah. I mean, in an interview he said about his Warner Brothers films. In the first 34 pictures I did for them, I was shot in 12, electrocuted or hanged in 8, and I was a jailbird in another 9. So yeah, it kind of became known as like these heavies, these unsavory types who usually go out in kind of quite spectacular
It's like that
fashion.
guy who plays Hector in like 10 different TV shows and
Yeah,
films. Uh,
yeah. Yeah, but then yeah, it was I think after Petrified Forest, I think his breakthrough is considered to be High Sierra, 1941. In the same year, John Huston casts him in Maltese Falcon,
yeah.
playing Sam Spade. The
And he worked with Houston on High Sierra too, and they'd sort of
yeah,
developed a
yeah,
relationship.
yeah. I mean, I think that they've said it quite unabashedly. They were best friends for life. Basically, they had a really fruitful creative partnership, but they were also quite similar personality-wise and similar interests. That they both really like to drink and just raising hell, basically. Just I mean, I don't imagine it would have been fun to have been around them. When it wasn't one of those two. They're probably perfectly well matched, but probably infuriating to a lot of people
Or it
that
might have been really
they
fun.
even
Who
worked with them.
knows?
Yeah, maybe. Um, and he helped kind of originate like the archetype of like the film noir kind of PI,
Yeah.
by
On
playing both,
screen.
yeah, both playing Sam Spade and Philip Marlowe on Big Sleep. And then he sort of
And
eventually,
by the way, with the Maltese Falcon, that was, oh God, I say Falcon. I'm gonna try not to say Falcon, um,
say
but
it however you feel most comfortable.
um, uh, that film was up for Best Pick. I mean, I guess I'll talk about this later, but it was competing with
Yeah,
like Citizen Kane. People had a lot of respect for
yeah,
this, weird detective picture.
Yeah, and considering it was Houston's directorial debut as well, it's quite impressive. Um, I mean, and he kind of managed to transition when eventually managed to transition into more of like the leading romantic kind of role with films like Casablanca, which gave him his first Academy Award nomination for Rick Blaine. Um, and it's arguably probably the film of all of his that's probably lasted, and kind of is best remembered for today. Um,
it's
and
where
then
your name came from, isn't that? You were named after the piano player.
of course, yeah. Oh, I don't doubt it. And he met Lauren Bacall, when he was 44 and she was 19. They fell in love while filming To Have and Have Not, and then they obviously played opposite each other in Dark Passage and Key Largo as well. Again with Houston. So he kind of going from kind of the villainous role to kind of these more morally ambiguous kind of characters to like the full-on like leading man, but still like a sardonic kind of quite gritty kind of leading man. But yeah, it's interesting that they eventually saw kind of his potential as like a romantic lead. Um, and yeah, the next decade, obviously, eventually get to the African Queen, which got him his first and only Oscar win. Which, as I've said, makes him the only actor born in the previous century to win an Oscar. And kind of his health kind of later that decade kind of rapidly declined, due to the life he'd lived, the smoking, the drinking usually, and yeah, I think he struggled with his last few performances. Though by all accounts, they're all pretty good, but they were kind of exhausting for him to kind of get through. I think towards the end he said when he was struggling to move around his his home, he I think it's just at one point, just put me in the dumbwaiter and I'll ride down to the first floor in style.
Yeah.
I think he was reluctant to make use of his wheelchair, when he was losing the mobility and everything. So I think he had quite a uncomfortable, miserable kind of final few years. When he eventually died when he just turned 57. He kind of left behind this very memorable kind of screen legacy, and yeah, he is one of those actors who would definitely be considered an icon today. It's really lasted over the years.
And the story of the day before his death, Spencer Tracy
Mm.
and Katharine Hepburn visited him at his home,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Spence put his hand on him and he said, "Good
mm.
night, Bogey," as they're leaving, and he said, "Goodbye, Spence," with a
Yeah,
sort of smile, and they knew.
yeah,
Died the next day.
yeah. Mm.
Also, I didn't know they had chemotherapy back in the 50s. Apparently, he was undergoing
Yeah,
that. Uh,
yeah. I don't think I had any idea when that actually came in. I mean, whether it's like a more rudimentary version of that, but yeah,
just Oppenheimer's running
yeah.
uranium over him or something.
Yeah, I mean, apparently the only concession he made to his health, after he'd had his first round of surgeries, to remove tried to remove the cancers, was that he switched for his first time in his life. He switched to filtered cigarettes. He still smoked 40 a day, but they were the filtered kind now. So.
That'll do it. Um, I found a quote from oh, here we go. David Thompson. Apparently, he called Bogart a limited actor, not quite honest with himself.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to say that when the dude was acting from, the 1920s on stage all the way through the 50s on film, playing all these various roles and
Yeah,
character
I
types.
think like a lot of stars when they've got their kind of that star persona, they're all good at certain things, aren't they? And then people, the fans will come back to see them do the thing they're good at time and time again. There's kind of like a comfort in that.
And I wonder if
But,
part of that is, I don't remember what year this book was written, but there wasn't quite the access to streaming or even digital media that we would have now to
yeah,
go back and
yeah,
watch everything. You kind
yeah.
of just see the
Um,
typecast.
Yeah, I mean Raymond Chandler, obviously he wrote Big Sleep. He kind of he reckoned that all Bogart had to do to dominate a scene was to enter it. So he kind of saw he had this kind of this presence, this hypnotic screen presence. You kind of your attention is drawn to him, and I kind of tend to agree with that. Because he was. If you think about it, he's not like the classic kind of star physically, is he? He was a little guy. He was kind of funny looking. He had a slight speech impediment, but he was always kind of compelling. That he for that matter, he kind of overcame that. And I suppose he probably stood out from his contemporaries a bit more because of that. He was very distinct.
Yeah, and Key Largo, it had a Humphrey Bogart Film Festival. I can't tell if it's still going on,
Mm,
but it was going on for a period, and then also the
yeah,
boat from the African Queen is down there. So because of that
yeah.
film, I guess that place has become associated with him.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, get another John Huston joint, and it was their kind of their collaboration together, which were probably most successful for both of them. Interestingly, I mean, we didn't plan it this way. We've both ended up picking a John Huston Humphrey Bogart film, separated by a decade. So that wasn't planned. It's a happy accident.
Well, and of course, most of my familiarity with John Huston before this is he's the dad in
Yeah.
Chinatown. So,
Yes. Yes.
um, and one other point on him, he had a production company called
Mm,
Santana Productions, and they produced 7 films. He starred in
yeah.
5, and the other
Yeah. And
two were "And the Party Makes 3" and "The Family Secret," in which he was not
yeah.
cast.
Yeah, and he was the first Hollywood actor to found his own production company, apparently, which is kind of more standard today. I think there are very few big stars in the modern era who don't have their own production company. You have, Brad Pitt with Plan B, and Margot Robbie with Lucky Chap, and all the others.
I didn't know that was the name of her production studio.
Yes, Lucky
Interesting.
Chap. Yeah.
Oh, all right. So with all that, I mean, now you don't have to watch the documentary. We've told you everything you need to know.
I'm
Um,
sure. I'm sure there'll be plenty more insight, kind of less kind of gossipy stuff, because I think that's probably the intention behind it. It's going to be the man behind, the kind of the icon kind of status. I'm sure, yeah, if it's been endorsed by the family, the estate, then yeah.
his
I mean,
son's book is called "Searching for My Father." I mean,
yeah,
he was
yeah.
very young when he
Apparently,
died. It sounds sad.
yeah, yeah, and apparently and I've not heard any interviews with him. Apparently, they do sound alike. They've got quite some to verify that. When the documentary comes out, I presume his interviews in it, talking about his dad.
That would be funny if he was like, now my dad, see, he smoking a cigarette. I would hope he
Yeah.
doesn't smoke and drink as
But
much.
yes, the problem is if you try to Humphrey Bogart impression, you do end up doing that generic kind of gangster voice, which, if we're being honest, is probably more Edward G. Robinson than is Bogart. But
Yeah,
it will
definitely.
do, close enough.
He was also in 2 episodes of Bugs Bunny, which that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Him and Peter Lorre basically appeared as caricatures of themselves. Yeah, voicing these really exaggerated kind of cartoon versions of their personas. Yeah.
oh well, I guess let's go ahead and get into these 2 movies, and
Yeah.
like you mentioned, he's it's so many movies. You could go watch tons of them, surely, especially the Warner Bros. Ones. Um,
Yeah.
and if you read the Essential Bogart, that'll give you the 38 that you need to see. I think is what the list ends at. Um,
Yeah.
maybe we need to do a TFM piece, but yeah, like you mentioned, the Maltese Falcon. God, I think it's because Mal Fall. It just
Yeah.
fits better. Um, anyway, the Maltese Falcon is the film that launched his career really, and
Yeah.
Houston's as well. Like just sent them into a different stratosphere from bit players and screenwriter. And you had seen this prior. I mean, I saw it a long time ago. So did you have any impressions?
Yeah, I would say it was probably about 10 years ago. I think it's probably at university. I think I saw it the first time. Um, I mean, I always come back to this. I always say, whenever I talk about university, it's always about 10 years ago. But then I stop and think, no, I'm older than that now. So, no, it was 12 years ago.
Oh gosh.
um, yeah. But yeah, I remembered it of kind of the more kind of film noir kind of Bogart films. I remember it being my favorite. I like that it's kind of it basically kind of it moves along at a fair pace, and the kind of the central mystery is quite interesting, plenty of twists and turns, and basically it comes out at the end as being basically, well, it was all pointless, wasn't it? Which I like that kind of slightly nihilistic kind of edge to it, which kind of marks it out for me.
Uh, See, I didn't really remember it because, when I watched old films 10 years ago, I was like, this is boring. I was mainly just watching it because, this is on lists as top five, if not number one, for a lot
Yeah,
of like film historians, critics, outlets. Um,
yeah,
I mean, this time through I had a much greater appreciation and enjoyment of
mm,
it. Um,
yeah,
but where it comes from is a novel. Ah, if only Kieran were here, he could talk to us about this, I'm sure. Um,
yeah.
it was written by Danshil Hammett. Great name.
Josh Hartnett, yeah, yeah. Who's basically, if you look for like a pulp kind of crime mystery writer who's not Raymond Chandler, you go for him. Basically, it's like both of them kind of writing about the same time. I think in like the 30s. So
Yeah, he had been a Pinkerton detective, and then he got tuberculosis, and so he stayed in a hotel separate from his family and wrote three novels. They were all optioned to Hollywood, I think. Um,
yeah,
he wrote more than that, but they were published in Black Mask in sections. And the Maltese Falcon was first. It was made into a movie in 1931.
yeah,
And
yeah. I've not seen that version.
I didn't see it, but the little documentary that came with this version of the film, it shows clips of it and it talks about it, and it's very sexual. So
Mm.
this is pre-code
Pre
Hollywood.
code, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that's a problematic term, but basically, there's just a lot of very salacious scenes. It's very much about Sam Spade being a womanizer. Then the next one comes out in 1936. They're all 5 years apart. Apparently, it was a flop, but like people liked the first one.
Yeah,
The second
yeah.
one was just an overall failure. It had Betty Davis as his secretary, and
Mm.
it was a comedy. The whole thing was just stupid, and
Yeah.
nobody liked it.
I mean, you do think of like film remakes as like a modern phenomenon, but they really weren't. Like the first few years of Hollywood, there were a lot of remakes about it, and not even like even letting kind of the celluloid kind of really set in properly. It's just a lot of you saw two versions of the same story probably within 5 years of each other a lot of the time. Like uh, the front page becoming His Girl Friday. I think there was only you know less than a decade like separating those. It's there are plenty of examples like that, which I find fascinating. Which is why Hollywood was working out kind of how they're going to tell these stories, kind of what the grammar would be. I suppose it's a lot more experimentation, and like well, that didn't quite work. We could probably do a slightly better version, a slightly glossier version of that. You know,
I
later on.
I guess the plus side is if you live like here where I am, you probably didn't see those other two versions, but this one
Yeah,
was so
yeah,
proliferated that you eventually did. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, John Huston, he was working at Warner Bros. He knew about the other two, and he asked his secretary, apparently, who is not listed on any sort of credits, to type up the book into a screenplay, which he then edited. And
Yes.
it was before he had even edited it. It was sitting on his desk, and the producer walked in, picked it up, read it, and was like, green light. However, because of the other two films, he had a very tight budget and sort of needed to just really get it done quick.
Mm.
I mean, not that
Yeah.
films today aren't under that sort of pressure.
Yeah, because it's again, it's another one of those films, isn't it? It does feel kind of stagey. It's a lot of it's just in a couple of rooms, isn't it? Really, and lots of back and forth dialogue. I mean, it's the dialogue stuff that really kind of stands out, kind of the pace of it, and just the amount of information the amount you can tell about the character just from a few like well chosen lines, and kind of how they interact with each other. Yeah, it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and so basically, I watched The Big Sleep before this, and that movie
Yeah,
is so annoying. This
yeah,
one's very straightforward, although it
mhm,
has the complexities. The complexities
yeah,
just come from the femme fatale lying, and
yeah.
um, this is the film that kicked off film noir. There were detective stories prior to this, but they were much
Mm.
uh, what's the term? I don't know, higher class. They didn't
Yeah.
have the sort of not beatnik because they weren't around yet, but that kind of language that the book was written in, where they're
Yeah.
like, what's the gumshoe? Cut up the onions? That kind of stupid talk from the
Yeah.
1940s. Um, oh my god, he says gum up the works. That's it.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I I I love how there were people in the 2000s who were like, we're gonna wear fedoras and suits and walk around talking like Humphrey Bogart because that's the pinnacle of cool, and that this film does draw you into that a little bit, and then you realize, no, I'm not gonna wear a fedora. This is
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah. I mean, I find it fascinating that it's sort of like it's a Casablanca kind of reunion before Casablanca. Well, I suppose Casablanca was a reunion of this cast, wasn't it? Really, it's just
Pre-union.
yeah, because I mean, so Bogart and Peter Lorre and the other guy, the big guy,
Oh,
it's that
I forget his name, which is a shame because he was nominated for an award.
Greenbaum, is
Sidney
it something like that?
Greenstreet.
Between streets, yes, yeah. But they're it's interesting that they kind of those three kind of they cross each other's paths quite a few times in their careers, and they just seem to be a really good on-screen combination. They play off each other well, and they've got real kind of chemistry and kind of wry kind of humor between them.
Were the other two under Warner Brothers contract? It may not be that coincidental.
Well, yeah, that's probably it.
Uh,
Um, yes, I mean, that must be a danger if you've got your contracted plays, you don't want them all to be in every film you do. You kind of need to spread them out a bit. Don't you?
at least to save money.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, pretty much the story. Mary Astor is playing the femme fatale. She walks in to Sam Spade's office. It's Spade and Archer at this point. She
mm,
walks into the office to say, "Oh, my sister has gotten into some trouble with this guy Thursby, eh? See, and you gotta go. You gotta go save her. You need to stop Thursby. Follow him, talk to him, whatever." And so there's a very complex relationship that is not super spelled out because it's the
yeah,
1940s between Archer and Spade. But Archer,
yeah,
who is married, is like, "Oh, I'll do this. I'm gonna take care of this." And he goes to follow her. He gets killed. That Thursby also gets killed, which kicks off the whole plot. He finds out she was lying. He discovers
yeah,
what's going on because Joe Cairo, played by Peter Lorre, shows up, and then he's got the kid, the what does he call him, the gunsler or whatever, uh,
yeah,
the short young guy following around the heavy, and then the actual heavy, the heavy man, Sidney Greenstreet, ultimately, and he's on to their plot to steal the Maltese Falcon, which
yeah.
is
Which which we've been told in like an opening kind of info dump on screen that it was a treasure from the Knights Templar days. It used to pay off the King of Spain, and it went missing, and people have been looking for it for centuries. So.
George Lucas loved this movie. I guarantee
Yeah,
you that Harrison Ford wears that hat because of these characters. The Millennium
mm,
Falcon surely comes from this. Like,
some way. Yeah, yeah,
uh,
wouldn't be surprised at all.
and the other thing I kind of realized about Humphrey Bogart in this movie, because most of my exposure to him is uh, Casablanca,
Yeah.
He's very much a Harrison Ford type.
Mm,
Like he's an ambiguous character in this film. He's
mm,
the
yeah. Yeah.
protagonist, but he's not a good
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, he doesn't like guns, but he'll disarm you quite easily. To make sure that you don't use them against him. He knocks someone out cold. Knocks the heavy out cold with a single punch. Which is kind of, as you say, a very Indiana Jones kind of thing to do.
It really is. And there's a lot of guns. There is not any. No, there's one shot in the
Yeah,
whole movie.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I do
yeah,
like that the kid carries two guns, and then on the cover or the poster, you see Humphrey Bogart wielding them, as if that's a point in the movie.
yeah. I think the confusing aspect of this is, so his partner gets killed off. Going to investigate this matter. Between the woman who hires them, but then it's this other guy, the other guy they're looking for, who's killed, who we'd never see, and he's killed off screen. That's the only slight confusing thing about where they're throwing out all these different names, some of which are characters we'll never see, and you kind of got to you remember kind of, so this was this person and they did this and they're looking for this because of this, and yeah, it's
Yeah,
I don't know if there's a better way of doing that. So, but I suppose he's not an important character, is he? The other guy gets killed off screen, but he's just a plot device. But
well, and there's also the Russian general who's named. There's the Captain Jacoby who just shows up, or Jacoby, who just
yeah,
shows up, and then they say, "Oh yeah, he's the boat captain." See, and then
yeah,
I was literally like, "Did I miss something? Where did this guy come from?" But no,
yeah,
he's just kind of shows up. I mean, there's small things like that, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward for a story about lying and
yeah.
covering things up.
Yeah, and like the police are kind of leaning on him, and they're happy for him to kind of carry on his investigations, but they want to be in on it, kind of what he's doing, and they want to get something out of it, and help their own investigations. So it's kind of a bit of back. It's almost like various deals, cuts and kind of under the table kind of stuff going on. So
Yeah, and we'll get to Bogart, but Mary Astor is really good because
yeah,
she's acting she's playing a dude disguised as another dude like Robert Downey Jr. Because she shows up and she gives a false name and a false
yeah,
story, and then she's changing that, and then she's changing
yeah,
that, and just the whole
yeah.
movie is really uncovering her layers of lies,
Mm.
which it's a lot more exciting than just watching people sit stand in a room and talk would seem.
Yeah, though those sitting in the room talking kind of scenes are still compelling. Though I mean, again, it's the quality of the dialogue and the quality of the performances, and how the information is like gradually kind of parceled out to you. It's you never get ahead of the characters in the room. It's that you're also learning at the same pace that they are. Though you do kind of get the impression that Sam Spade is maybe one step ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
He's working it out.
There's also the kinetic quality to the scene. So whenever we're talking about like it's all in these rooms, well, they're moving around. The last
Yeah,
30 minutes takes place in one apartment where they
yeah,
go from here to here to here
yeah,
to here.
yeah,
The camera
yeah,
and characters are constantly moving,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
took an extra day of rehearsal to make sure they nailed that,
Mm.
so they would film it
And
perfectly.
yeah, and the lighting is very kind of distinct as well. It has got that kind of that classic noir kind of look to it. Like high contrast lighting, the shadows, and everything like that. It's very consciously kind of constructed. So this is not a boring scene. To sit and watch. Even if it is just people, having a conversation in the room. It's as you say. It's yes, it's made as interesting as it can be.
Yeah, film noir leaned heavily on German expressionism, and this is
Yeah.
kind of that first expression of that on screen, at least. And
Mm.
there's also a lot of really black outfits that help with that, but there's the
Yeah.
asymmetry in shots, there's the low angles. I think especially the one where he's first talking to. I keep wanting to call him Fat Man, but his name is like not Big Gut, Gutman. That's it.
Gutman, yeah. Yeah,
uh,
really creative. That's like exactly what it says on the tin, isn't it? It's just that's almost like We're going to compare Dashiell Hammett to her, but that's like a J.K. Rowling style kind of descriptive, name. My name will tell you exactly what kind of a person I am.
Yep. They shoot him from below, and like he's so big and imposing,
Yeah,
and just it fills up the screen in a very odd way. Um,
yeah,
all the shadows. Yeah, I mean those are the qualities that made German expressionism and then film noir what they are. This is,
yeah,
I mean, surely somebody was doing something a bit like this because they had also watched Nosferatu or whatever. But although that's not German, Caligari. That's what I'm thinking of. Uh,
yeah,
this is the one to really popularize it, especially with a big star. Get it into the Hollywood mainstream, and I think the other really impressive thing about that final scene, like yeah, they're just sitting there, kind of doling out information, but Humphrey Bogart's also having to posture and
mm,
overplay his hand a little bit, trying to get just out of this situation. Ultimately, he wins nothing. He gets nothing.
yeah,
He's just out for himself at this point, trying to escape to live another day. And that
yeah,
final bit where they're in the room, it just seems like they're in a completely different space because of how tight the camera gets and how they're framed sitting on the couch talking,
yeah,
even though we've
yeah,
been in that room for like 25 minutes at that
yeah.
point.
And in less skilled hands, it would be a really unsatisfying ending, because basically the bad guys don't get what they want. Says, "Oh well, we'll just have to go back to Istanbul and continue our search." Basically. So they get away. They just carry on doing what they're doing. Um, Sam Spade, sends the femme fatale to prison. Essentially, she takes fall for everything. Obviously, she kills a man. So she should go to prison, but she kind of no one else kind of gets their comeuppance for anything
No,
else.
they get arrested.
Oh, do they get arrested after they leave for the? Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
he calls the police and says, "Hey, they're heading over to the whatever hotel,"
Oh,
and
right. Okay,
then he
fair enough.
turns
Yeah,
over all their guns and the money that
yeah,
they tried to bribe him with.
yeah, yeah. But essentially, it's like, yeah, this tragedy, obviously it was a fake, and yeah, the one of the classic kind of lines of this era of Hollywood. It's the stuff that dreams are made of. Basically, it's life's terrible. You're not going to get what you want, and sometimes, no matter how much effort you've put into something, it will just go down the toilet. It was all a big waste of everyone's time.
And
But
my
but not but, but not the audience. I'm talking about the characters.
right, my favorite Humphrey Bogart scene in this is actually when he has to talk to the wife of his dead partner, who it doesn't explicitly say they're having an affair, but they do kiss.
Mm, yeah,
And she kind
yeah,
of makes allusions to "I want you to marry me" and that sort of thing. And um, there's a part where she asks if he killed him, and he has to clap his hand sort of emphatically and sit back, and he makes these little micro expressions that really get across the emotion of the character while he's very
yeah,
level, saying, "Oh, you think I killed him, see?" Uh,
yeah,
again, terrible Humphrey Bogart.
yeah. But yeah, he is one of those people that kind of he says a lot with miss with by doing very very little. I mean, he's yeah, everyone knows, like, what he sounded like, kind of his kind of mannerisms and kind of his persona. But I think there was some subtlety to him as well. It's possibly a bit underrated. I think that there's always a lot going on, like, behind the eyes, and just, as you say, these, like, little kind of change in expression, these, like, little physical ticks. Says a lot, without having to state out loud what the character's going through.
Yep. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, this was incredibly critically well received. It made lots
Yeah,
of money. Uh, Continues to make money. It inspired. I'm thinking of the people that were in that short documentary. It was like Frank Miller, who did Sin
yeah,
City. It kind of owes everything to this film. Peter Bogdanovich. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, just so many filmmakers. I'm sure George Lucas and Steven Spielberg watched this and were like, "Yay!" as little kids. Like, uh, it was going up against Citizen Kane at the Oscars, and very well
Yeah,
could have beaten it.
yeah, yeah. I think for films like Shane Black, today, just anyone who's done anything like any kind of neo noir kind of thing, where it's kind of it's telling this kind of story, like passing out the information to the audience in kind of interesting ways, and taking them on a unexpected kind of route to the answer, or not providing an answer, a full answer at the end of it, but keeping you invested nonetheless. Yeah, it's kind of hugely influential, understandably. So
And as far as like, this only lists AFI, so I'm sure other people have it ranked, but AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies in 1998, it was number 23. The quote was number 14, which is a misquote of Shakespeare in The Tempest. We are such stuff as dreams are made on. Uh,
yeah,
I don't know if he's misquoting it or if he's just sort of adapting it.
yeah,
But
probably adapting it. Yeah.
it was described as a misquote in the documentary. Um, but yeah, apparently Humphrey Bogart knew a lot of Shakespeare, could just like quote it. So maybe he was intentionally misquoting.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
But based on what I read, he didn't do a lot of improv. He generally stuck to scripts.
Yeah. I think kind of to generalise massively, I think people coming from a theatre background tend to kind of see the script as like as their blueprint.
If I could go back and write my 10 best films, this might be on it. I
Mm.
I would need to relook through it. But yeah, I think there's a chance this would have made it onto my list had I really given it serious consideration prior.
Yeah, yeah. I think I had Casablanca on mine, but and yeah, of the Bogart films, it's probably it's my go-to. But yeah, I think this would be close behind it. I think of the ones I've seen. I think this and Treasure of Sierra Madre, again another John Huston one, probably my favourites.
It,
And they're all kind of from this era, kind of making the most of his kind of persona, but all doing something slightly different with it each time around.
I will I'll write 10 more best.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
stick this in there. And
yeah.
then I found this is from Letterbox user Jizz Monkey. Um, their review says, "An unfamiliar time. Men were men, dames were dames, and smoking was good for you." Um,
Yeah, yeah. Is there a scene in this where he doesn't have a cigarette on the go?
I don't think so.
No.
Oh, he hand rolls them too, and
Yeah,
his
yeah,
secretary does it for him. Effie, she rolls one for him at one point. Imagine having to roll your own cigarettes. What a pain.
yeah.
Okay, I
Yes,
guess that's
yes,
it for this.
yeah, yeah. I think we've kind of pretty much covered Maltese Falcon. Yeah, well worth a look if you haven't seen it by now. It's I think you'll end up watching it and thinking, oh, that's where all of this stuff I've seen in like subsequent movies came from. It's one of those like those totemic kind of films which just kind of influence so many things after it.
Yeah, I have seen people fight if this is better than Double Indemnity and The Third Man. They,
Oh yeah. I mean, if we're talking about film noir wider, then yeah, I would rate both Double Indemnity and Third Man higher than this, but for
interesting.
different, they're different. Very different movies. They're I mean, Double Indemnity, Dashiell Hammett as well. Um,
It's just a
sorry.
real. It's a real case, so I don't know what it's based on other than like the real sash hair murder.
Yeah, but someone obviously adapted the case into the screenplay, and oh, it was Ren Chandler, the other one.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually, it's a safe bet in this era if someone's kind of writing the screenplay and it's this kind of style. It's one or the other.
Nice.
um, yeah. So so going from that to leap forward another decade, and several other kind of John Huston and Humphrey Bogart kind of collaborations. We come to the African Queen, which ended up winning Bogart's one and only Oscar. He was nominated for Casablanca, but yeah, still only actually won. He did have a nice line about that kind of. About kind of the Oscar win and kind of what it kind of changes forms and stuff, and kind of he said the only way to survive an Oscar is to never try winning another one. Too many stars win it, then figure they have to top themselves. They become afraid to take chances. The results, a lot of dull performances and dull pictures.
I wonder what
So
Leonardo
yeah,
DiCaprio thinks of that quote.
yeah. Yes, so this is so John Huston's 1951 film based on C.S. Forester's novella. It's called The African Queen. And we follow Rose Sayer, who's played by Katharine Hepburn, and she's a pious English missionary in East Africa in 1914. And her and her brother basically fall afoul of some marauding German soldiers. The village they're staying in is basically sacked, and she falls in with this drunk Canadian steamboat captain, Charlie Allnutt, played by Bogart, and basically they set off in his steamboat down the river with this harebrained plan to blow up a German gunboat that will thereby allow the British soldiers to advance into German territory.
By the way, before we get any further, are you convinced in this film that Katharine Hepburn is from the Midlands?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. I'm not English, and I was not convinced.
Yeah. But Katharine Hepburn, I did find it fascinating. In this era, basically, no major female stars really spoke their own voice. It was a very manufactured kind of vocal affectation, this kind of weird mid-Atlantic kind of thing.
She has like a posh American accent somehow.
Basically, yeah. It's like, and you probably get away with it on stage, but on screen, he wants something a bit more kind of authentic. I was saying that Bogart, his character in the book is a Cockney, so he's meant to be from London, but they changed him to Canadian because Bogart couldn't do an English accent. So,
was it couldn't or he refused to?
Either. I think, I don't know. He may have tried it, and they said, "Yeah, better not." So, yeah, we'll just say Canadian.
Oi, governor!
Yeah,
get on the African Queen, say.
Yeah. But no one decided to tell Hepburn that she didn't sound very authentically English. And also the fact that she doesn't even say somewhere like concrete in this country. She just says the Midlands, which is a very vague bit of the UK. It's like, so just pick somewhere from the middle of the country. And his response to that is, it sounds very beautiful. It sounds yeah. Does the Midlands as a place name sound like a nice place? I don't know.
We have a city in Texas named Midland, and it's not a nice place.
Yeah. I'd respect her if she said, "Oh, I'm from Birmingham."
You wish.
If she sounded like Ozzy Osbourne and kind of said, "I'm from Birmingham."
So that's what the Midlands should sound like, Ozzy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Anyway, so kind of on this kind of quest they embark on. Basically, their lives are put in danger time and time again by the elements and the wildlife, and their kind of clashing kind of backgrounds and kind of what's important in their lives. But eventually, wouldn't you know it, they fall for each other despite very different people, and they fall head over heels for each other and embark on a very kind of unconventional romance, which would very much be consummated, except they can't actually explicitly say it was on screen because we're still in the Hays Code kind of era. So they edit around it, but we know what they got up to on that very small boat.
This film was hit with the censors, apparently, and so was the Maltese Falcon. They said that Joe Cairo was too much of a pansy. That's what they wrote in the note, and so they had to make him less gay seeming.
That kept in all the phallic fiddling with his cane.
Yes. Well, yeah. Here's the thing: Christian conservatives are too stupid to pick up on subtext.
Yeah. I did love this the scene in this where it's kind of unintentionally comical where they separate off, you know, for modesty's sake that they're both going to go for a bath in the river, and they go over opposite side of the boat. I'm thinking, oh, this is a bit risque for the time, you know, kind of struggling to get back on the boats, but kind of staying kind of submerged enough. And then she holds herself up, and they're both still wearing like full
Yeah.
length, like Victorian underwear. You know,
Yeah.
you're not seeing anything. What you're shy about?
Oh. And also, by the way, it's interesting that this book was written prior to World War II, but then shot
Yeah.
after World War II.
Yes, and apparently in the book got criticism but they want the portrayal of the Germans to be more sympathetic because everyone agreed World War One was a big mistake, but everything should be forgiven. You know, we're all friends again now. Whereas when the film version came out, this, oh no, we'll make the Germans more evil because we've still got enough people around who haven't forgiven them for World War Two. So, um,
Ah.
I mean, so this is basically a big old-fashioned kind of romantic adventure movie. It's got some really kind of even now, I think generally, I think the big Jeopardy kind of action scenes are pretty well executed. You know, some of the back projections are a little bit dodgy, but aside from that, I think it's pretty well done, and
There's only one
using
point where I picked up on a really bad rear projection, just because the white outline around Bogey and the
is it
boat.
when they go down the second waterfall that kind of basically wrecks the boat? I
I
think that
think
was.
so.
Yeah. Um, and like the use of the locations. I mean, you know, John Huston, you crazy guy that he was. He wanted to go to Africa and find these kind of proper locations and use them to as much as they could. Obviously, they did pickups back in the UK and reconstructed like some of the, you know, the river scenes and, you know, in the studio, but they got the kind of what they needed, you know, out on location, and it's pretty kind of commendable there, despite the fact that basically everyone everyone on the film got sick from the water quality, basically, apart from Bogart and Houston, who basically lived off Scotch whiskey for the whole period. So,
Understandable.
yeah, I mean, I think that they basically theorised that Bogart says all I ate was baked beans, canned asparagus, and Scotch whiskey. And as I said, whenever a fly bit Houston or me, it dropped dead. So basically, they kind of they were so they made their blood toxic enough, basically, to fend off like the local wildlife.
Well, it's a shame
Um,
she got rid of his gin, if that's how things work.
yeah. I mean, yes. So for once, Bogey he's not chain smoking to the extent that he is in noir films, but when he's not smoking, he's probably swigging on a gin bottle up to the point where she, you know, where she gets rid of it all over the side. I mean, he wakes up from like this monster hangover, you know, after getting a bit aggressive and, you know, in a bit of a state, you know, from the amount of alcohol he's consumed the night before. And he's basically almost paralytic on the floor, watching her pour all his booze over the side. He can't even get up to, you know, to stop her. He's just completely, you know, completely helpless. It did remind me of seeing the first Pirates of the Caribbean. I was thinking, why is the rum gone? I expect to come out, but why is the gin gone?
I also wonder if Canadians drank a lot of gin back then, or if maybe they should have changed it to whiskey when they changed the character's
I,
nationality.
I, I think it's a sailor thing, isn't it? I think it's it's the go to like sailor drink basically because it's cheap and very alcoholic. I
Fair.
mean, that's the only way I think you kind of keep when the River Thames water quality was particularly bad during Victorian times. It was the only way basically you could keep from getting ill by just drinking gin, like having a tog of gin with every meal, basically.
Is that the Great Stink?
Yeah. Yes and no. Or there's been several great stinks over the years in London,
Oh,
but yeah, there was the occasion, yeah, where they had to close Parliament for a bit because it was so bad. That was probably about that time. Um, so yes, it's Catherine Hepburn was so sick apparently during shooting the opening church scene, you know, which is you know, playing the organ and kind of leading their parishioners in like a song that they had to have a bucket just off camera, and like every time they finish a take, she just kind of ducks down and had to, you know, get rid of it. And apparently then as soon as they wrapped filming, then she rushed out, you know, to get to the outhouse. to find a massive black mamba inside, which just got to run for the trees.
Oh
So
God.
yeah,
Apparently,
yes,
not apparently. I thought it was interesting that the film didn't really touch on the colonialism and like
no,
Christianization of these, indigenous Africans at all.
yeah. The opening scene, after that, I was expecting a bit more of it, and bit strange, kind of this kind of makeshift church, this African village, and just all the all the tribe, kind of they're trying to kind of lead unsuccessfully in like a hymn, and
It's so
they're just
funny.
kind of mouthing along and just kind of don't really know what's going on. But yeah, but basically, yeah, after the opening scene, really the Africans don't play kind of a role afterwards. You see some that have been hired to bolster the German ranks, which apparently was something the German military did in World War One. They obviously got the local indigenous kind of people, to kind of obviously guide them, but also, if you can hold a rifle, you're useful to us.
Yeah. And also like it's just kind of matter of fact. Like this is what's
Yeah,
happening. Naturally,
yeah,
Bogey would be
yeah,
employing these natives on his boat. Um,
yeah. Yeah,
but
and I think if you got like a new adaptation of this today, they'd probably confront that more. I'd say, I'm sure you probably would have some
or they'd
African
leave it
characters,
out.
yeah, but maybe having a few just with a few lines of dialogue might be nice. Just give that
In the
perspective as well.
recommended like for you or whatever on iTunes, it had Jungle Cruise. So
Which was inspired by the African Queen. The ride was inspired by the African Queen, and then the Rock film from the other year was like this, but ridiculously dumbed down, essentially, wasn't it? I mean, it was.
yeah, in like a fantasy land, I guess.
This isn't a subtle movie. Don't get me wrong, but that made it look stealthy by comparison. Um,
Yeah.
Jack Cardiff, the director of photography, who worked with a lot on a lot of Powell and Pressburger films. He basically he was kind of subject to the whims of Houston. They were going to shoot in Uganda, but then Houston went over to the Congo and Democratic Republic of Congo as it is now, and found a location he likes more. And also gave him an opportunity to hunt more wildlife. He was a big game hunter. So, well, I can go shoot elephants in this adjacent country. I want to film my movie here, so I can get these locations and do a bit of killing on the side.
Nice. They
Yeah,
also
so they
shot it on 3-strip Technicolor, so like,
yeah,
massive
yeah.
cameras. Imagine wandering around the jungle with all of this equipment they needed to shoot this movie.
Yeah, I mean, the version of this I've seen was quite an old DVD of this, so it wasn't a great print. But I mean, I'd love to see like a proper restored version of it, 'cause it's a very kind of
Paramount
striking.
restored it in 2009. That's the one I watched.
Yeah, yeah. So I might need to see a better version, like a more recent version. But it's still, even saying that, it's a very striking looking film, and like I said, the location stuff I think really helps. Just having them sail down an actual river with actual African wildlife on the bank, and it's it does add something. It's also nice. I don't think there's many films from this era, especially obviously you get it more now with mention him again, like what like Leonardo DiCaprio does, and like something like The Revenant. But it's nice to see these two kind of megawatt kind of film stars get progressively kind of grubbier and more dishevelled kind of as the film goes on. There's no kind of glamour to it. They're quite unvain kind of performances, really. I mean, Hepburn's it's just what she's wearing just falling apart as it goes through. She's got. I never thought I'd see like a film with like Katharine Hepburn bulging biceps. It's like she goes like properly gets into like the physical requirements of piloting a boat down like a dangerous river. It's good.
Uh,
And obviously you have Bogey having to get into the water at one point, to guide the ship through the boat through like a reed bed. Um, he wasn't willing to have himself covered in actual leeches, so they just had some some fake ones basically to get the point across, and then in close-ups they got a stuntman in basically to actually have
Oh,
who actually had the actual leeches on them. I mean, I suppose if the actual leeches went on to bogey the amount of alcohol in his blood, they probably would have just died straight away.
like the flies.
Yeah,
Another thing pointed out about the two actors in this is they're like middle aged. This is a middle aged couple doing an adventure
yeah,
film with like a lot of physical work to it.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I noticed in this, like Bogart, he's still in pretty good shape. You know, for a guy in his in his 50s, you know, he's believable that his physicality is wiry. You know, you can kind of imagine him kind of spending all his days up and down this river, delivering supplies and messages. It's
Kicking his
c- c-
boiler.
yeah, yeah. I mean that's classic. Again, do you think George Lucas influenced about how you have to whack the Millennium Falcon a certain way to get it to work?
God, George, the greatest thief to ever live. That's great
Yeah,
artists. Good artists borrow, great artists steal. He's a
yeah,
genius.
yeah, yeah. So the film overcame kind of cast and crew illness, army ant infestations, leaky boats, poor food, attacking hippos, poor water filters, extreme
What
heat,
did they get
and
attacked by hippos?
yeah, they got charged by hippos. In fact, hippos of all the African animals, they're the ones you really got to watch because they're faster than they look. They will just trample you.
That is
Kind of
horrifying.
yeah, and even a boat fire. Apparently, one of the boats kind of caught fire luckily towards the end of the shoot, so that it didn't impact filming too much. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff went wrong during this, but it transcends all that kind of to big box office and critical success. 4 Academy Award nominations, and sort of Bogart got one his, and Hepburn and Houston were both nominated for director and actress, and it was nominated for its screenplay as well. So um, I would say it's there are elements. It's a bit kind of cheesy at times because some of it's kind of dated a bit, and the romance kind of feels a little bit rushed. It's like all of a sudden it just seems kind of nowhere that they're just they're making eyes at each other, and it can feel a bit sudden. But aside from that, I think it's a really impressive piece of filmmaking. I think it's quite well done. It's still kind of mostly holds up. If you like this kind of old fashioned kind of style filmmaking, doing what you can for real, and just everything's big emotions, kind of big kind of muscular filmmaking, then it's worth a look.
I also
I mean,
found it weird that the brother at the beginning just died of like a broken heart or whatever, like Padme. She's like, he
yeah,
wasn't shot.
yeah. Doesn't he sort of just go into shock almost? Kind of his body kind of shuts down. It's like seeing his mission basically burnt to the ground around him. I mean,
It's very weird.
yeah. Um, Yeah, so I mean, I don't have anything grand or sweeping to say about it in particular. I mean, I think it's one of those that's beyond my to watch list for a while. It's one I've always been aware of. I've just never got around to seeing like until this year. But it's yeah, I'm pleased I went for it. It's not that long either. You'd expect this to be a proper like, epic, but no, it's under 2 hours. So it's
You,
yeah,
you've
won't take up too much of your time.
you've mentioned a lot of how I felt about it, like with individual scenes and kind of seeing the scope on location. That even with the
Yeah,
rear projection, they had to go shoot a
yeah,
lot in Africa, and they did
yeah,
film stuff
yeah,
there. But
yeah.
I was a little disappointed, like especially for the film's reputation, all of the award nominations that it received. I just
Mhm.
was expecting more. Part of that's
Yeah.
probably having seen Apocalypse Now. I wanted more out of it. Bigger.
Yeah, but you got these two like big stars, and again, sort of like gradually breaking them down in their characters. They're both kind of doing what they do well, and they've got good chemistry together. And again, Bogart as a romantic lead. Again, about I suppose less than a decade after they first tried the studio first tried him out in that sort of mold as an actor. It's kind of works. So, I mean, kind of analyzing kind of why it was such a big star and kind of what people went to see kind of his movies for. Certain things he did really well, and I think it is this kind of this kind of sardonic kind of leading man. He's a romantic, but he's a realist as well. He gets stuff done. He's a practical kind of man of action. I was expecting possibly a slight more of a twist towards the end, because for a while it seemed like he's just leading her on. He's just kind of saying, "Oh yeah, we're definitely going to blow up that gunship," But really, I thought it was going to be like he was just going to be just getting to shut up about it for a while. But no, he sort of comes around to it. So, "Oh yeah, well, we might as well help the British Army because we're here now." So I expect a bit more of despair, when they did kind of get lost in the reeds and stuff like that. And then basically they get out of that by chance. They basically both pass out on the boat, and the tide kind of there's a rainstorm and the water rises, and they're basically just carried out of the reed bed by chance, really.
Making him Canadian does sort of take away from some of that patriotic vigor that should be theoretically driving him to blow up this boat.
But Canada was a part of the British Commonwealth, so there is a connection there. I mean, so it's basically yeah.
Was it still like under British rule at this point? I mean, I know technically, but
yeah,
okay,
yeah, right up till. I mean, technically now, it's like there's the king now is still like the monarch,
right.
I
didn't know at what point it's separated from actual to technically.
Yeah. Especially during wartime, especially I think the British kind of expects all their subjects, from the colonies around the world to play their parts.
Interesting.
I mean, I sort of do, but I definitely don't want to see what if Bogart ever actually did attempt the British accent, and how that would have been, how that would have turned out. But yeah, essentially, it's just like it's a two-hander for a lot of this, isn't it? It's just they've got to be kind of compelling kind of screen pairing, or else this film wouldn't work at all. You get a couple of brief encounters with the Germans, and especially towards the end. They're again another kind of possibly conscious reference in Pirates of the Caribbean. They're about to die, and they ask the German captain to marry them before they're executed. And I think there was a moment in the third Pirates of the Caribbean film where again it's like they're going towards certain death. Oh, we've got to be married first. Captain Barbosa, will you marry us?
Yeah, I think Pauline Kael, she wrote in her review that it's comedy, action, romance, all these different things at once. Like, this very much reminds me of a 1950s blockbuster. It's got all the elements of film kind of in there.
Yeah, I think you've got to give something for everyone, haven't you? To kind of spread your net wide, and please as many kind of audiences as possible. That's probably the way to do it.
Yep. All right. So those are our reviews. I wonder what Kieran would have picked if he had been here. Maybe Casablanca, just to round out the big three. Yeah, but this is it for Humphrey Bogart. Maybe we'll do him again some other time and do like Less Known or something. Early works, who knows? But
I mean, there's that 30 odd gangster films he does.
Yeah,
in the mid-30s.
But that is it for this episode. But we'll be back next week with something else. Until then, Sam, where can people find you playing it again?
You can find me playing it again, Sam, at SSB Thinks Film and at the Film Magazine, where this week I've published a review of the new Netflix documentary, The Remarkable Life of Evelyn, which is a really kind of interesting story, and well worth a look. I mean, I think only probably the most diehard Warcraft fans will have known this story beforehand. So yeah, it's
is this about the person who died and they had a funeral in the game?
I thought it was, but no, it's a separate person who died, and they paid tribute to him. No, this is a Norwegian player with motor neuron disease who basically lived a whole other life in World of Warcraft, and none of the people he played with knew what his situation was. So, yeah, it
Nice.
was a really interesting story. Um, I think was it Joe who reviewed Casablanca a few years ago. So there will be an anniversary review of Casablanca somewhere in the film magazine. I just can't remember whether it was Joe who did it or not. It's probably Joe.
Yeah. That was Joe.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that may be the only Bogart thing we've actually got on the site at the minute. So we may have to address that at some point.
uh, Kieran doesn't want you to find him. That's why he's not
Yeah,
here. But if you want to, he's at K Judgmental. He wrote a review of The Front Room, and he may have plugged that last week. He also reviewed Pokemon the first movie at 25, and we know that Kieran's a big Pokemon and Digimon fan, so go
yeah,
check that out. You can find me at Jacob Film Guy, and I have not written anything recently. I got stuff in the works, but I found another tangential Humphrey Bogart thing when I looked it up. Margaret Rorty wrote the 10 best ways the movies say I love you, which surely will include Casablanca on that list.
yeah.
Spoilers. She also reviewed Interview with a Vampire at 30. So if you like Lestat, you like little kid Kirsten Dunst and Brad Pitt, I mean, go check that out. That's one of my favorite camp vampire movies.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's see. You can follow us at Second Cut Pod. Email us at secondcutpod@gmail.com. Follow the film magazine on whatever channels. And also, down in the description, you can...
Yeah. Just like I said, the film magazine is on Blue Sky now. So if you want to escape the Twitter hellscape, then the Twitter X hellscape, whatever Elon's doing to it, then go for more peaceful kind of social media existence. Then we can be found there. We need to build back up our following again because we're essentially starting again. But
Yeah,
we'll
and
get that.
well, and I was reading today like sports media is moving over there, that's a big thing. A lot of like fantasy
Yeah,
sports news, gambling news, moving off
yeah.
Twitter would be big.
The Guardian UK publication is moving off Twitter as well. Yeah, so yeah, it's been a mass exodus. It's I think Blue Sky is the number one social app at the minute, and I think Twitter is outside the top 20. So doing well, Elon. Doing well.
Well, he's doing better than I'd like.
Yeah,
And go to our Redbubble store and buy things that aren't related to misinterpreting Starship Trooper scenes. And I don't know, maybe we do. Maybe we have some merch that misinterprets Starship Troopers. And also, you can just give us money at the PayPal below. And that all just goes to keeping the film magazine online and paying the writers. It's, just really cool to be able to do that because we're independent and the end of the year is coming up. So, this is the time of year when people really, really need money.
yeah.
Yep. And that is it. Thank you for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye.